and welcome to Senior Solutions, where we bring you topics affecting seniors and their loved ones. I'm your host, Mindy Felinton. I'm joined today by Pamela Vines. And welcome, Pamela. I'm delighted that you're here.
Thank you for having me, Mindy.
So Pamela is here because I met Pamela recently at an event that I went to, and she was talking about her writing about memoirs and teaching people how to do that. And I thought that that would be something that you all at home might find very valuable and helpful and informative. So, Pamela, tell us a little bit about your background and how you evolved into becoming an author.
Well, my background is in defense. After high school and college, while I was in college, I found out about the ROTC program. So I went up to the office and signed up, and after college, I became an Army officer and immediately went into the service, and I served 20 years. But throughout that time, I specialized in public relations and public affairs, as the Army calls it. And along those lines, I started to write, and a lot more heavily, and even majored in writing in college. But while I was in the military, I became really infused with the profession, and I just loved it. And afterwards, after I retired, I said, I want to write my book, all the book that I had on my mind for the past 20 some odd years. But I didn't do it. I worked for a defense consulting firm for 9 years. And after that, I said, you know, I really, really need to get serious. It's been, what, upwards of 30 years now. I need to finish my book. So I finished my first novel last year, and I finished the second novel in only 3 months. So the writing is now caught fire in my spirit, and I am just a writing dynamo.
Yes, well, it sounds like it. And then you somehow segued into writing memoirs and helping people to do that.
I did.
Would you kind of describe what writing a memoir is about and how that's helpful for people, not only those who are writing it, but also their families?
Well, a memoir is a factual account of a person's life. And the word memoir is derived from the French word memoir, and that means to reminisce or a memory. And a memoir is also a genre, a literary genre that has to do with creative nonfiction. And it's normally told in the first-person narrative. And I remember as a little girl hearing about famous people writing their memoirs, and I would always associate that with someone sitting in a big desk with a quill pen in their hand, you know, dodgy and stodgy, and just pontificating about life and graduating from Oxford or something. But memoir isn't like that at all. So as I grew and started to learn about the genre and do a lot of reading on my own, I found out that a memoir is simply storytelling. It's having a person, a collection of memories. So it's having people collect their memories and share them with their family members. And that's why it's so important.
Well, I think one of the things that you had shared too when I met you a couple of weeks ago was the fact that in your own personal life do you want to kind of talk a little bit about that and the importance
yes.
of had there been a memoir for you?
Truly, truly. When I think my mother passed away in 2009, and although I'd been reading a lot, but that was one of the reasons, one of the events in my life that made me think about memoir. So my mother passed away, and my sisters and I had to go through her personal effects. It was extremely, I even thought it was imposing at the time. I didn't want to do it. And so as we were going through her clothes and jewelry, and it occurred to me that none of that mattered. You know, I was in a position now I was going through drawers and personal effects looking for things that she'd written. That's what was important to me. I wanted to find something with her handwriting on it. It didn't matter what it was, whether it was a diary or a letter. It could have even been a grocery list. I just wanted to see her writing, and because I knew that that was what I needed to connect me to my mother. And it wasn't successful. I did find a greeting card that I had packed away a long time ago that said "Love Mommy" on it, and I cherish that greeting card now because we don't have anything from her. And I think along those lines, you know, in further reflecting on it, I never asked my mother all of those important questions because as a young woman and as a child, I thought it was imposing, and in a lot of cultures, it's just not appropriate to ask your elders and your people you respect those personal type questions.
Sure.
So, but even the smallest things, like what was her bedroom like when she grew up? And what was the first thing she thought about when she saw my father? Those things and those memories are gone now because I didn't ask. And so with memory and memoir, I want to be able to have people and family members not experience the heartache that I've had to endure and those memories that I can never get back. So with memoir, introducing it to seniors, introducing it to family members and anyone, it's a way that I can ensure that they have those memories recorded. And it doesn't have to be on paper. It could even be by voice with a digital recording, but it's something that will bring back and reconnect the person you love with someone that you may lose in the end. So it's memoir is deeply personal to me.
And I suppose in the realm of the family dynamic, it's a great legacy or way to advance down through the generations the family history, which
it is
so unfortunately not memorialized as often as it should, because I share with you the sentiment about the discomfort that I'm sure many of our audience members also have in asking our elders
yes.
About their personal life. And the truth of the matter is that they're probably very eager to share that information, but there's some hesitancy that people have. So I think it would be a really good sort of suggestion to take for our audience to ask.
Yes.
And to overcome that. But maybe the millennials have a different philosophy anyway. It's a whole different world, right?
Yes, they are.
So how would you recommend they embark on a journey to start working on their memoirs? What would be some suggested first steps?
Well, there's a quote by Winston Churchill that says, "I know history will be kind to me because I intend to write it." So, and I think that resonates with me so much because it's true that the very first thing people have to do is think about what history they want to share. Think about those events in their life that have made them happy or were painful. Think about those events and those historical things that they would want to pass on. Perhaps not even history, but even guidance, wisdom that you'd like to leave and pass on about your life and the family and just things that you've learned as a man, things that you've learned as a woman that you think that your grandchildren and other loved ones may benefit from. So it's important to just think about that at the onset. And once you do, then just make a short outline about things that you want to write about. And I know the act of thinking of memoir, thinking of writing a book can seem overwhelming and daunting to some people at first. But it doesn't have to be that large of a project because, for instance, using myself as an example, I would be happy with 1 page of guidance or sentiment from my mother or my grandmother. But it doesn't have to be a deep project.
Grandiose.
Right. It could be 5 paragraphs. It could be 5 pages. It could be 50 pages. So whatever someone wants to commit to and think through, then they would just write it down. And that's just probably the easiest way that's point number one, is to start.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
great. And I understand also that you have classes that you
I
provide.
do.
Do you want
Because
to talk a little bit about those?
I have a passion for the elders because, with me losing mine, I bond with my elder people, and I also have a passion and patience for children. So the elderly and children are just pure on my heart to help them. And the idea for memoir came along not just for myself, but when I was thinking about people who are in assisted facilities and in churches. They could be senior ministries, but those people are able to commit to a project to write. And so I was thinking, what about putting together a short seminar and an in-depth workshop? So the seminar is 45 minutes, and that's just in how to write memoir. And it introduces people to the genre and lets them know just the 1, 2, 3 steps about doing it. Write it down, write it out, start it, and then finish it. And just getting away those fears. And then the workshop itself is a 6-week extensive program where I go to a facility and sit with a group. Upwards of 5 to 10 people, no more than 12 is ideal, because it's an intimate setting where people talk about their feelings. And it's a setting where we introduce, again, the art of memoir. We talk about getting past that fear of writing, some techniques about how to write, how to get your feelings out, and explain that memoir is more than just writing, I did this, I did that, I did the other. It's about bringing your emotion and your sight and hearing and sensory into what you're writing. So take us back to that time when you were 7 and you broke your arm. Were you outside? Was it springtime? Did you smell the persimmons? Did you, do a hard thud on the grass, or was it concrete? So those kinds of perceptions and memories bring into the story to make it more fulfilling for a person to read later on. So we talk about those things, and we also share each other's work. So when they get homework every week, and when they bring their homework into the group, we take turns reading it and critiquing it and sharing and offering improvements on how they can make their story a little bit better.
Wow. So what's the average age of the person who's attending your workshop?
It varies, but upwards of between 60 and 70. I've had some younger people, and that's wonderful because I believe that memoir is good for everyone. So, but that's on the average age between, I would guess, 55 and 75, as long as they still have their faculties and can still write and are up to thinking more deeply.
Well, I'd like to continue a little bit more about the classes after we come back from our break. But we're going to take a short break right now, and we'll be right back.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Welcome back to Senior Solutions, where we bring you topics affecting seniors and their loved ones. And I'm your host, Mindy Felinton. And I'm joined today by Pamela Vines, who is here talking with us today about memoirs, or as they say in French, memoir.
Yes, memoir.
Memoir. I try.
You do good.
Thank you, thank you. So we were talking a little bit about, before our break, about the class that you offer and the workshops that you offer. Who should take that?
I believe memoir is like superfood for the soul. I think everybody should take memoir. And there's a poem by Paul Laurence Dunbar. He's a poet, and there's one of my favorite poems called "We Wear the Mask," and just a few excerpts from it. It's called "We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheek and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile. Through worn and bleeding hearts we smile." And so this "We Wear the Mask" is a perfect excerpt into why people should do memoir, because our everyday walks, we present ourselves as different people. And it could depend on your culture, but it's rare when you get one person who is the same in every environment. So we have our work persona, we have our home persona, and even there we're different with the husband than we are with the children, than we are with our in-laws. We're all different. And it's just with memoir, it lets us strip all of that away. It gives us an opportunity to sit down with a pen and paper and truly reveal our real selves. And so that in memoir is why I believe it's so empowering for ourselves. But it's empowering for seniors as well. So for a senior, I think there are three main reasons a senior should, I recommend, they study memoir. Is that because it's a mind booster, it's healing, and it's something new. As far as the mind, it gives people something to boost themselves. For instance, if you are starting a new workout program, if you're running or even doing a brisk walk, it enhances your cardiovascular system. And regular reading and writing does the same thing for our minds. And I know I'm not a medical professional, but I read in neurology, a neurology journal, that our decline decreases 32% less if you keep your mind active.
Good to know.
So it's vitally important for not only seniors but everybody to just keep reading and keep writing on a regular basis. And memoir can also be healing, because a lot of us go through our daily lives with a lot of stress, a lot of regret, and just overthinking, hyperboles. What if I did this? What if I shouldn't have done that in life? Whereas if you write it down, it becomes such a reliever, because you leave your thoughts on the paper, and it frees up so much of your stress, and you literally feel as though a weight has been lifted once you commit to writing something on paper.
I'm on it.
Yes.
I want to take your class.
And the third thing it helps for seniors is, especially if a senior is living in an assisted facility, that their days may be monotonous. And bringing in a memoir class gets them to think about something new. It becomes something completely different than their normal routine, and they get to share and talk to their fellow roommates or friend and learn things about each other that you would never have thought to come up in regular conversation. So it's a really eye-opening experience.
And really a social opportunity for them as well.
Absolutely.
And there's probably a lot of bonding that goes on as a result of being in your workshops or classes, I would imagine, yes?
It's true. So when I first introduce everyone, I do a little game and have them buy in that whatever happens in the workshop, the writing workshop, stays in the writing workshop. So we take a little piece of the Las Vegas motto, because it's unless you're wanting to share and expose your thoughts, it truly is an intimate group where you talk about things that may not have been pleasing in your life, things that you may have done that weren't so positive, or things that have been hurtful, joyous times that you may not want to share outside the room. So it really is a warm and secure environment for people to come and share.
Yes, it sounds very therapeutic in
I think.
many ways.
Yes.
So are there different types of memoirs?
Oh, absolutely. There probably are scores of memoir, different types. But typically there were three that people concentrate on, and those are the coming-of-age memoir. And for example, there's the one, coming of age is with the Maya Angelou. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And there she concentrates on just a small segment of her life from when she was 8 up until 16 when she was pregnant with her first child. You also have career memoirs. I know that Ernest Hemingway wrote the, it is 1964, A Movement Feast is what the book is called. And that talks about his repatriation in being a writer and expatriating himself into Cuba. And you also have Stephen King's memoir on writing, and that deals with his trials of a writer, his beginnings, and how he became successful with the hundreds of millions of dollars that he makes. So that's a career memoir. And then you have another one that's very popular is the overcoming an obstacle type of memoir. And
Can you give me an example of what that?
that would be one of the recent ones. Two recent books is the book named Wild by Cheryl Strayed. And that's where she loses her mother to cancer, and she decides to heal herself by hiking the Pacific Coast Trail all alone. So she does that over a series of months. And it's just it's one of my favorite memoirs, actually.
They made a movie out of that,
They
didn't they?
did. They made a movie, and Reese Witherspoon stars in the movie. The movie is excellent. It's an excellent rendition of the book, but I recommend the book because you just have to read the book to appreciate Cheryl Strayed's artistic expertise as a writer. She truly takes you there, and it's just beautiful prose, poetic type of writing. So those are the three main types.
And so somebody might say, well, is a memoir like a diary? Are they similar?
They are similar. There are differences between memoir and an autobiography versus a diary. A diary is like the Diary of Anne Frank. It's a day-to-day account of exactly everything that's going on. So it's only limited by the period of time the person wrote the diary. And then you have the autobiography, like the autobiography of Malcolm X, where he takes you from his first memory as a child upwards until he's right before he dies. And that's a complete life history. But then the memoir is only a segment. Memoirs are just collections of memories. And you can write a story on a certain event, or a series of events, or just a period of time in your life. So I could write a fishing memoir, for instance, and just write about my passion for fishing and how that has changed from when I was a young child upwards of becoming a professional fisherman as an adult, something like that.
And would you say that it's perhaps a bit more descriptive in a memoir setting than a diary? In other words, there's more detail versus a kind of a day-by-day.
Yes, you're exactly right. In a memoir, the two things that separate a memoir from just a regular diary or a letter, just an overall account, would be, the first thing is bringing in those sensory perceptions. So if I'm writing a diary, I say, oh, I broke my arm when I was 7. I broke my arm yesterday. Versus you having a memoir about the arm-breaking incident when you were 7. That's when you bring in what you were doing at the time. What type of day was it? Was it sunny? What did your mother tell you not to do? Did you climb the tree that she told you not to touch? And how did the bark feel against your little tiny hands? And how did the swoosh feel when you hit the ground? So, those are these sensory types of things that you bring in describing an account in a memoir versus a diary, because you wouldn't get that detail.
It's amazing what a difference, just in the way you were describing the
So-
difference between the diary and the memoir.
And yes, and the other thing about memoir, before I forget,
Yes.
is that when you write a piece, you should have shown a change. A change should have taken place in whatever you're describing. So in Cheryl Strayed's book, for instance, in Wild, she starts the book as a free spirit. She's upset. She's can't find herself. But when she finishes the hike, she completes a rejuvenation, and she becomes more settled and secure in herself, and now she understands who she is. So that's probably the underlying factor in what separates a memoir from other creative fiction, is that the protagonist, you, the person who's writing the book, has shown some type of change.
Interesting. So what inspired you to go down this authorship path?
Well, I think I've always written. As a child, I wrote poetry, and in my professional career as an officer, I wrote press releases, and I always had my own personal book along the way, but I think writing is just in my blood. I can't explain it. I was born to write, and I can't even say that I love it. I love having written, but the process is extremely grueling, and I have to admit that. And I share that with the students, because people say, oh, I hate to write. But no, they don't hate it, because it's a beautiful thing once you've finished. And I know that in my own writing, I can describe it as a skeleton. When I first write something on a page, it pretty much looks like a skeleton, or a tree in February. It's sans any leaves or depth. But as I go back and put in my sensories and bring the story back into it, and adding the leaves and adding the shadowing and colors and flowers, and then it becomes a story. And so, but I truly enjoy what I do, and I'm
it
always
comes through.
proud of the end result.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing your story and helping our families and their loved ones to realize the importance of creating a memoir. If somebody wanted to get more information about how to join one of your classes, or have them come to their living environment to give a class, how would they do that?
I think the easiest way is to go directly to my website, and it is exactly my name. My website is www.pamelahartvines.com, and even my email is my name, Pamela@PamelaHartVines.com.
Okay. Again, thank you so much. This
Thank
was
you
great.
for having me.
And if you have any topics you would like to see on Senior Solutions, please feel free to write to me at seniorsolutionsTV@gmail.com. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.